It has been 9 long weeks, but the wait is finally over. GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, is back in action, and it returns right here at Virginia International Raceway in the lush Virginian countryside. Hello, my name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. It's Amanda Busick down in the pit lane for us. And Cal, it feels like it's been a long time since we've been able to say this, but we're about to go qualifying for a pair of races here on a warm morning in Southern Virginia.
Yeah, certainly a lot of anticipation as the season gets its restart after that summer break. But this weekend has not been without its problems with the weather. We've had a lot of delays with lightning strikes and wet weather here. So I think for these teams, many of whom have been idle since the last rounds at Sebring, they've lost a little bit of that precious track time. Certainly for the AM drivers, I feel that really hurts them more, Ryan, in terms of getting back into the groove. So they'll try and use this qualifying session to try and find their strut a little bit, see if they can get back on pace.
And maybe nowhere else on the schedule is that as important as it is here at VIR. If you're not in the car constantly, if you're not a professional racing driver, this place can be daunting.
It's all about confidence here. You need a race car that's balanced. You need to feel it's underneath you, and if you're not really feeling it, it will bite you, but it'll certainly hurt your lap time as well, because it takes big commitment through some of these high-speed sections. It's a beautiful kind of authentic road course facility here, and it's certainly very challenging, but there's no better time. Coolish morning here. Track temps are going to be lower than we'll see all day long. Fresh Pirelli P0s, light fuel loads. Let's go.
It's going to be a lot of fun for us, for the drivers as well. Aaron Telitz has been quick here this weekend. He drives a McLaren, and he's standing by with Amanda.
Good morning, Ryan. Yeah, you're taking a look at Todd Coleman in that E-Structure McLaren ready to go out here for qualifying. I was just talking to Aaron Telitz about kind of the sketchy weather that we've seen here this weekend. Luckily, Todd was able to pull a lot of laps in practice one yesterday, but the McLaren looks like it's ready to eat here this weekend. You guys come off of a collective weekend in Sebring, your best of the season, a 4th place finish, a 5th place finish. How primed is this team for a breakout?
Yeah, definitely ready to go. I think we just keep improving every weekend this year, which has been great. It's Todd's first year full-time in GT3 machinery, and each weekend he just keeps stepping it up a little bit by little bit. Yeah, and our McLaren's running great here this weekend, so we're looking forward to it.
You've been alongside Todd for many seasons. Where do you see that his growth really fits VIR?
This has always been one of his best tracks, but this is such a tricky track to get right over a lap, and really peaky too. So the tires peak after about 2 laps, and then you've really got to nail it there when they're in qualifying. And we've just been working on that with him, getting better qualifying positions. So look for him to do a good job here.
Well, since we were talking about that sketchy weather, how do drivers anticipate the changes in what Mother Nature might deliver us?
I mean, there's not much you can do about it, and it seems like here it's got very Florida-esque weather where it's hot and humid, and then in the afternoon the rain showers roll in, and you just never know when they're going to hit. So, I mean, it could be the same today. Around race time, maybe some rain showers roll in. Obviously sunny and hot and humid for qualifying, but by race time today, who knows?
Guys, I can confirm it's already a little toasty down here. Just standing here, I think Telitz and I are a little glistening already in this heat.
Well, not alone in that, I have no doubt. Try and stay cool as best as you can, Amanda. That will be the challenge for the teams, for the drivers, for these crews that are out in the heat all throughout the day. And it will come down to them executing as well during the pit stop in the race that is upcoming this afternoon. A look there at the Canadian team, very much not in Canadian weather right here, but they had a big race yesterday, and TC America scored a big win for the Toyota TC car. But now their focus, of course, is on the GT3 car, which is about to tackle this famous racetrack here, Calvin. Originally opened in the 50s. It went dormant for a couple of decades, but brought back around the turn of the millennium, and it has regained the form that it had in the 50s. It's as challenging now as it was back then.
Yeah, as I said before, it's very authentic. I mean, certainly the safety improvements have been remarkable over the last few years here, but the racetrack itself is pretty much the same. It is old school in the truest sense of the word in terms of, you know, it's challenging. It takes huge commitment. If you make a mistake at the high speeds, you're going to go for a bit of a ride here. We've got wet grass with the weather, so the drivers are going to have to tread very carefully here this morning. If you're off the road on the wrong trajectory, you're going to struggle to get the car slowed down. But that's the challenge. That's why we love it. That's what it means when you do put together that perfect lap and you nail it, as Aaron talked about, with the sweet spot of those Pirelli P0s, which will come in very quickly here. It's kind of a high energy track, and with these already kind of ambient temperatures in the low 80s, track temps up over 100 already early this morning. That means it's going to come in pretty quickly, maybe lap 3, maybe 4, and you need to be absolutely have clear air, clear, racetrack, and really just hit all your marks and see if you can lay one down. Otherwise, you're going to be struggling because the tires are going to go off a little bit as the fuel burn makes the car a little bit lighter.
Qualifying format, pretty simple. It's broken into 2 15-minute sessions. Driver 1 qualifies for race 1. That's what we're looking at right here. This is qualifying session 1. Immediately after this, we'll go again for another 15 minutes. Second driver in the lineups climb aboard. That sets the grid for race 2 coming up tomorrow. Last year we'll be able to say that, though, Cal. That was announced during the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa. A new format coming to the championship next year with a single race replacing the 2 90-minute races, 1 3-hour race instead.
Yeah, big change in terms of the format, and we've got to get the devils in the detail, of course, in terms of what the drive times will be and the stint lengths and stuff like that. But here we see a spin early in this session. That's the 27 CRP car of Jason Daskler's behind the wheel. So obviously we talked about it being relatively cool, but those tires aren't really into their sweet spot. He gets caught out. I don't think he would have flat spotted the tire there, but he's just going to shake things around a little bit, make sure he's getting back into a groove as everyone else starting to ramp things up a little bit, flying down this front stretch. About 165 miles an hour. Similar speed here as you get into the roller coaster at the end of Madison Avenue, within a mile an hour of each other on those 2 long straightaways.
Let's start introducing you to some of the protagonists that we'll be seeing in the field here this weekend once again. Random Vandals Racing, a pair of BMW M4s, as we've seen all season long. And for Varun Choksi and Bill Auberlin, they've been looking for a little bit of pace in this chassis since the opening round in Sonoma, and they feel like they might have unlocked something.
Yeah, they actually did a check on the engine. I was talking to Bill Auberlin here yesterday, and he said we did a check on the engine, pulled out a spark plug, and it was completely broken. So they then dug a little bit deeper and noticed there was further damage. They put a fresh motor in, and he said suddenly we're back on pace again. So had a really strong opening weekend at Sonoma in terms of their pace. Had a couple of technical issues that really precluded them from being higher up on the podium. But since that time, they've been sort of scratching their heads. They've been about 6-7 tenths off their teammates. But suddenly here this weekend, they're right with their teammates. Bill Auberlin and Ken Cook actually switched chassis around during the test day here on Thursday and ran very similar lap times with each. They said the other car is a little bit sweeter in terms of the handling. This one seems to have good straightaway speed with the fresh motor on. But they're a team that have kind of done that reverse driver strategy, but I don't see that here today. Varun's out here for the first qualifying session.
Yeah, that's right. Something that came into the regulations last year was the ability to nominate driver 1 and driver 2. In the past, that had been dictated by FIA driver grading, and that's opened up the window to do some things differently, especially in the Pro-Am classes. It's a little bit different in the Pro class, although it's worth noting here in North America, different from GT World Challenge Europe, for instance. The Pro class has a silver driver mandate as part of its 2-driver lineup. You can't run 2 golds or a gold and a platinum or 2 platinums. That is one unique aspect to this championship here in North America. Choksi comes across the line, trips that timing beacon at a 1:47.330 to go P1 in the early stages, but that's still a couple of seconds off the times we saw in the 2 practices earlier in the weekend.
Yeah, low 46s, but I think that's an indicator that these tires are coming alive very, very quickly here. To be that early in the session, only be about 9 tenths off the fastest lap of the weekend so far. So I think that indicates to me we're going to see these hot laps set early in this session, and then it's really a decision to be made. Do you continue to pound around and see if you can perfect a lap, or do you just let the tires rest on pit lane?
Choksi pushing. He had the best Sector 1 until just a moment ago. It was snatched away in class by his teammate, Kenton Cook. Scott Dolehite putting in some solid times as well in the Dolehite Racing Ford Mustang. New co-driver here this weekend. He's had a revolving door of drivers alongside, but it's Eric Powell who steps up to GT3 for the first time in his career, from a decorated career in touring car racing, has GT4 experience as well, and the hope is that Eric will be in for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think there's a great fit. We talk about Eric in terms of one of those talents who maybe slipped through the net, but he suddenly got busy again this year, running a couple of championships. He'd been beating on their door a little bit to get that AM seat alongside Scott, and finally gets it. To be determined if he's in for the season, I think there's certainly a good indicator that he may be, so I think that'd be a great pairing. Spoke to Scott yesterday, believe it or not, this is his first time racing here at VIR, so that really surprised me when he told me that, and he said, this is a super challenging race circuit. He said, I am off the pace right now, but I'm getting closer. Just want to use each and every session to get a little bit closer to being right on form.
That's a team and a lineup that did not want to see sessions wiped out due to inclement weather. Lightning in the area, as you mentioned earlier, wiped out quite a bit of track running. I think in practice too, no one turned more than 5 laps, and some cars got significantly fewer laps in than that. So everyone chasing things a little bit, and currently the whole field chasing Kenton Cook, who just came through at a 1:45.955. That's an outstanding lap, 3/10 clear of his teammate Varun Choksi. Right now, Random Vandals provisionally holding the top 2 spots, but still very early in the going as we take a look here at the number 16 entry from AF Course. A big welcome back to them, and my oh my, has this team been hard at work. A couple of big crashes for series newcomer Christian Hahn, and great work by the AF Corsa crew to get that car turned around not once but twice to be ready for qualifying here today.
Yeah, the primary car was damaged here in a practice session on Thursday, and they looked at kind of fixing it, and then they elected to bring down their spare chassis from Charlotte, and they went out on the racetrack yesterday and had a similar moment, so it's been a heavy workload for that whole crew. So hats off to them to have that car back out there for qualifying early this morning.
Cal mentioned the alternate strategy earlier, and regulator racing with this Mercedes, this has been the hallmark of their game plan over the last year and a half, and the key here is for Philip Ellis to do what he's doing right now. He just jumps to the top at a 1:45.483, nearly half a second faster than anyone else. That good enough not just for provisional polling class, but overall outstanding, and that's exactly what they need from Philip to make their strategy work.
Yeah, no surprise there. Philip Ellis just aboard one of these Mercedes AMG. I think if there's heaven on earth, we're not talking about the racetrack, I think Philip Ellis aboard one of these Mercedes, because he just makes them tick. And a bit of a change there in terms of who's on the pit box. Their regulator racing, their regular strategist and engineer Stefan Pfeiffer has moved on, and they got a couple of new personnel who have got a ton of experience with this level of competition. Scott Jasmine is kind of leading the way this weekend. We've got Steve Conover. Both those guys have worked intensively with Flying Lizard over the last few years, so lots of quality and lots of experience on their pit box despite the change.
You mentioned Scott Dolehite, a newcomer to VIR, but solidly in the middle of the field overall, and fastest of the 2 AM cars at this stage, slotting in the 8th spot. Ellis, though, only by half a tenth over Kenton Cook. That said, Ellis is on another flyer here, just went purple in Sector 1. This is that long drag down Madison Avenue, maybe not the strong suit for this Mercedes, but now we get into the technical stuff, and that's where this Mercedes AMG thrives.
Yeah, did the track preview yesterday with Philip, and I said, are you a skier? I think this is like slalom. He said, no, I've skied once in my life, but nonetheless, he can certainly handle a little slalom down through there. Coming out of Hog Pen, flashing across the line. 2 purple sectors. Let's see he can seal this lap here.
Looks neat and tidy. Trips the timing beacon just a moment ago, and he does go faster by about half a tenth, so now he has a tenth in hand over the BMW of Kenton Cook, but crucially a significant chunk in hand over the next car in class, which is Christian Hahn. Really impressive. The young man does have extensive experience racing Porsche Cup cars primarily, but also some open wheel racing background, but he's had a difficult introduction to this racetrack. Nevertheless, has bounced back nicely to be second in class and basically first on the primary strategy within the Pro-Am class.
There you see circuit performance, and it's the 91 regulator racing through the first couple of sectors. BMW holds it through the final sector. But yeah, that is an amazing lap by Christian Hahn. We talked about confidence to have 2 big hits here and come bounce back and have such a solid run here in qualifying. Really a testimony to this young man's mentality and skill level.
Yep, Brazilian stock car experience as well, as recently as 2021 Porsche Endurance Series Carrera Cup champion in his native Brazil back in 2022 and spent quite a bit of time in Europe racing single-seaters. Now 27 years old and coming in to join his father Marcelo with AF Corsa. So that's a change in lineup for AF Corsa this year after Alam Kodair had done the earlier sections of the season. Eric Powell now with Amanda Busick.
Well, Ryan, you were talking about Eric Powell, and I'm happy to introduce our GT World Challenge fans to the new driver with this Mustang team. And Eric, how did these conversations begin for you, and how did this moment happen?
Obviously, I mean, I've been around this series for quite a while. I've known Scott for a long time, and since I saw they introduced this program, I've been kind of badgering him ever since. And I don't know the catalyst really, but they wanted to make a change, and yeah, I had been pretty squeaky, so squeaky wheel gets the grease, I guess, and I'm just super happy to be here. It's a dream opportunity for me. Car's awesome. Yeah, ready to get going here.
Congratulations on the opportunity, and good luck in your first official qualifying.
Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate it.
A big deal for him. Saw some quotes in the press where he talked about as a Floridian growing up, went to big endurance races in his native state and always gravitated towards the GT cars. His goal has been to get to GT3, so this is the culmination of a lot of work to get to GT World Challenge America here this year.
Kai Stevens here on his best lap so far. Green in the first sector, green in sector 2. He only needs to find a tenth of a second to leapfrog over Varun Choksi and maybe split those two random vandals machines. There's a brand new chassis that they're debuting here this race weekend. I guess Mercedes-Benz did a new batch of 6 and they elected to grab one.
Those were prized commodities. If you could get a hold of them, that had been an issue for teams in recent years. Of course, Mercedes working on a successor to this venerable platform. Alex Sedgwick, by the way, just put in a really strong lap to jump to 2nd in Pro. Stevens jumps up to 3rd in class, and it's really tight. Sedgwick, Stevens separated by next to nothing, and Choksi not too far behind either. Here is Sedgwick for RS1, paired with the Belgian Jan Halen. And these two, admittedly, it's a 4-car class, so to say they've been a fixture on the podium isn't necessarily the compliment it might be if the field was a bit deeper. But that said, they have been regularly nipping at the heels of the race winners, and it seems like that breakthrough could be any weekend now.
Yeah, they finished 2nd in 4 of the last 5 races, so they've been knocking on the door, but you could see they're totally on the limit. They're up through the S's. Speed ramps up. These are high downforce machines, particularly with the Pirelli P0s being relatively fresh, but moment there for Schwest.
Yeah, Ross, who had a pretty good qualifying effort for GT America earlier this morning.
It's in Hogpen. He may struggle to climb that incline there with the wet grass.
Yeah, we had a ton of rain, didn't we, last night? Doing a great job just to spin those wheels, get as much traction as he can. Crucial that he gets back out on track and not bring out a red flag here.
Yeah, these cars are a little trickier than a normal race car in the old days in terms of the clutch control and everything. They kind of set up for launch control out of the boxes, so doing this low speed kind of takeaway can be problematic.
Hopefully he can get it going again, avoid any stoppage, because right now, 6th in class, pretty solid qualifying effort. What do you make of that, Cal?
Well, he may have had a slightly shallow entry, ate a lot of that inside curb, and immediately was kind of spearing off in the wrong trajectory and had to try and pinch it a little bit.
The shame was he was on a good lap too. He had just done his best middle sector, had a solid opening sector as well, and it wasn't going to take a whole lot to jump a position or two.
Had a chat with him. We walked into the restaurant alongside him last night, and he said, I'm really trying to get my head around this Corvette racing platform, talking to the engineers there, and really been trying to get him to adapt a different driving style on the entry to some of these corners. So certainly still going through that learning phase. But Philip Ellis, no surprise, I guess, but it was pretty tight there. Kenton Cook really pushed him hard for that overall pole.
He did, but again, on slightly different agendas here. The crucial thing for regulator racing is to get Philip up front in race 1, let him build a gap, hope the race stays green, and then Jeff Burton can nurse it home. And they've been remarkably successful with that this year, Calvin. A couple of wins. Over the last 3 races, they finished no worse than 3rd, and they're second in points, only 10 points out of the championship lead.
Yeah, it's really tight, and I think that makes the rest of the group nervous. Guys like Robbie Foley and Justin Rothberg there to see that group so close. Qualifying continues here, see if anyone can pull in a last lap flag. Kyle Washington does. He jumps up the board a little bit there. 8th in class, 13th overall for Kyle Washington. Spoke to Kyle, we saw him the evening before at a restaurant, coincidentally, and he looked as fit as a fiddle. I mean, he's a strong man, but he looked like he'd really leaned down. He said he's really been hitting the gym hard since that break. Hasn't done a lot of seat time. We talked about Kyle being involved in multiple championships. He said, I haven't really done much racing. Spent a lot of my summer in Vancouver with his kids and focused on family stuff, but he'll come back. I think it's harder for these AM drivers, despite their great improvement over the last couple of years, guys like Kyle, to take that big break. It's hard to get back and find it and get back into your confidence zone.
That said, he's not lacking for confidence. He never is, but I would say that conversation we had with him, it felt like he felt he was at the top of his game coming into this weekend at VIR across both GT World Challenge America as well as GT America. I know he has some high expectations. Qualifying in both series, actually, probably not quite what he was anticipating, but these are, especially here in GT World Challenge, quite long races where you have a couple different ways you can get to the front, and Tom Sargent's been driving really well as well here recently. That whole GMG team seems to be clicking.
They really do, and the Porsche's shown some pace here. Carl Marcelli led the way aboard his car earlier this weekend, so I think it's a good track for the Porsches potentially. But Kyle always seems to come good in the race. I reflect back to Sebring in GT America, where he had the fastest lap in race 1, put him on the pole, and he just drove away. I think that was his best race that we've seen in either category over the last couple of years.
Totally agree. These are your provisional pole sitters in the respective classes. In the pro class, Kitten Cook came within a tenth of Philip Ellis for the overall pole. Ellis will lead the overall field to the green flag, and then in the AM class, Scott Dolehite put in a solid run, starting very much mid-pack, good enough for the AM class pole. And now debutant Eric Powell will get a chance to climb aboard that Ford Mustang in just a few moments. A look at how the grid will line up, pending tech, of course. Ellis and Burton, great start to their weekend, looking for their 3rd win of the season. They won here a year ago in what was a breakthrough performance. The Vandals a little closer together, but still with Kitten Cook holding the edge in qualifying. Sedgwick, Stevens super close together, as you can see, and then Christian Hahn, one of the more impressive performances given the heavy impact he's had here this weekend, puts that right behind him and turns in a great qualifying performance, effectively first on their strategy.
Yeah, another team that's really starting to show its form is DXDT Racing. McDonald's really got to grips with that Corvette. He's got a great teammate in the Brit, Matt Bell, so they're right in the mix again this weekend.
Strong showing for sure. Strong showing once again from Philip Ellis as well, who is standing by with Amanda Busick.
And as we cover that alternate strategy, race in, race out, it was here last season that Jeff Burton and Philip Ellis picked up that first win together in GT World Challenge America, back to the place that it started, and now 10 points back in this championship. How important is this weekend for your effort?
You know, it's just as important as every other weekend, but of course it's nice coming back here where we had our first overall win last year with Jeff, and so I think the place suits us. Jeff likes it, the car's good here. We don't really know what to expect with weather yet. You know, everybody says something else, so that might be exciting tonight as well, and also tomorrow. But you know, it's going to be a lot hot, grueling race, and you know, it'll be fun.
In your experience, how does the Mercedes handle wet conditions?
Not as good as other cars, unfortunately. But you know, we're kind of hoping if it goes wet, it'll be something mixed. So maybe some mixed conditions where you can kind of play the strategy as well. We already offset with the strategy anyway, so we might be doubling down when the weather comes down. Thank you.
Always insightful, Philip Ellis. Great to hear from him. This is a look at him hard at work behind the wheel through This is down at Oak Tree. Amazing what he can extract out of that car. When you turn him loose, low fuel, sticker tires, he always seems to deliver.
He's so poised. I spoke to Brian Sellers about it. Brian Sellers actually did a test with Jeff Burton because Philip was busy over in Europe. And Brian said, I look at the laps that Philip puts together and it looks effortless. Do you know what I mean? He's just so relaxed behind the wheel. He can just make that Mercedes sing. And just thinking about the big picture of that, we talk about the championship only 10 points back, and you think about Foley and Rothberg, you got that 91 car knocking on the door, do you know what I mean, 10 points back, but they're running the alternate strategy, and that means you really don't have any control around that, do you know what I mean? You're not with them all the time. You're typically split on the racetrack, and I think it's harder to manage that championship lead because of that.
That's a really good point, really interesting to think about as well. I'd be curious to hear from Robbie and Justin and the Turner team at some point to see how they view that. I mean, typically drivers and teams will tell you they only try to control what they can control, right. And that really is the case here because they're very rarely interacting with one another on track, maybe just briefly when the two strategies overlap.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wild ride, and that certainly gives us lots to chew on in terms of every single race that we're calling, and also from a championship perspective as well, with it so tight now.
Two cars from the AF Course camp. We talked about the dad and lad combo of the Hans. This, though, is Oz Negri, the veteran. Jay Schreibman qualified earlier for race number 1. Now it's another Brazilian aboard here with Oz. So much experience, though, here in the States. Big wins in major endurance races at Daytona and Road Atlanta over the years. And an excellent coach, something he's turned into as well at this stage in his career, helping to bring Jay Schreibman out of single-make Ferrari racing into GT3 racing, as we saw them test the waters at the tail end of last season and now jumping into the deep end.
Yeah, Oz is just amazing, just such a great personality, just a quality guy, great racer, so many accomplishments in sports car racing over the last 2 or 3 decades, and just the perfect mentor for someone like Jay to really go to the racetrack, have a solid hand to lead him through the course of this development phase that he's with these GT3 machines.
Two of them were joined by Tony Vilander, if you recall, last year at the Indy 8 Hour, and had a really good performance. They finished 4th. That was the oldest lineup in the field by a wide margin, and that Pro-Am class was quite deep with entrants from all around the world that came to Indy, and they were just off the podium a year ago, which I thought was a pretty eye-opening accomplishment. 11 minutes, 38 seconds on the clock. Let's get an update down from the pits with Amanda.
I caught up with Jay and Oz recently at a Ferrari Challenge weekend, and all eyes have been on this AM battle between the Ford versus the Ferrari. So much so that Jay told me that for the effort for the Indy 8 Hour, as you guys were talking about Tony Vilander, they're going to consider adding a bronze to the lineup this season and having an AM entry for that competition as well. So for our Ferrari fans and for our Ford fans, that battle never dies.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's got a nice ring to it, and it is close. They are even on points coming into this weekend. Only 2 cars in the class, and the Ford actually hasn't run as an AM the entire season. They ran as a Pro-Am lineup at Sonoma, but it is really, really close between them. Of course, we didn't see Oz and Jay at Sebring either, so that's kind of helped to mitigate the fact that the Ford didn't run in the class in the season opener, but even though there's just the 2 cars, it's a nice friendly rivalry between the two.
Yeah, it really is. Just quality efforts, and great to see them battling hard despite the limited entry in that AM class at the moment. There's the Aston Martin here of Heart of Racing entry. They got a little bit of a BOP change, balance of performance, which is the technical regs on all of the individual manufacturers, so they had a bit of a boost last night, not in terms of engine power, but a little bit of a weight break. We'll see what that does for Darren Turner, who's actually on his first race weekend. He did some testing here, shook down a GT3 car at one point a couple of years ago, I believe it was. So, but in race conditions, he's never seen a green flag here at VIR.
Gray Newell actually had a pretty good qualifying effort just a moment ago in Q1, right around the top 5, if memory serves, and I was going to call that out, but got distracted. So better late than never, I suppose, and perhaps that VOP change has helped to unlock a little bit of performance in that car. But a big step for Gray. He'd done some GT3 racing prior to this year, but full season here in GT World Challenge America for the first time. To have a veteran like Darren alongside is a huge asset.
Yeah, Ian James said it's been a really great match. He said Darren just has such great experience, and he said it for Gray, he was running with Roman DeAngelis, and they're kind of a similar age, versus he looks at Darren as kind of more of a mentor. No disrespect to Roman's abilities behind the off and on here. That's Connor Di Filippi, is it?
Yes. And he was on a good lap too. Purple first sector, solid middle sector.
His teammate flashes through and goes to the top momentarily as Matt Bellno takes over the top overall position at a 46.2.
Yeah, that's the DXDT Racing Corvette. It's been there or thereabouts through a couple of practice sessions. Here's a look at it now. Matt Bell, so successful over the years. He's had a really good 2025 in multiple championships. Certainly in fine form. As we take a look here at what happened to the American Connor Di Filippi, a little bit wide through hog pen and doing some of the yard work for the staff here at VIR.
Yeah, I always found, I didn't do a lot of running here, but when I did do some laps here at VIR, I found that corner, that exit, very tricky run, because you're kind of, your eyes are looking through the corner, and you're just kind of feeling the edge of the road with your peripheral vision, and that's so easy to just get that, just that inch wide, and suddenly that front end is just going to grab that grass and take you for a ride.
Here's a look at Aaron Thielitz. He and Todd Coleman, fourth in the Pro-Am standings coming into the weekend. Their best weekend of the year, the last time out at Sebring with a fourth and a fifth. Just barely off the podium there in the first of those two races. Tough for them, I think, when they finally feel like they got some momentum, some wind in their sails, and then they have to sit and wait for 9 weeks for the next opportunity.
Big lap here for Thielitz, purple in both the first sectors here. This could put him towards the top of the charts, I feel.
Currently 14th, now 15th overall, but coming to the line with a good lap in hand. Turner just went to second overall. Here comes Thielitz. He goes P1 by 0.6 of a second, Cal. What a lap.
Yeah, it's a really strong lap there in the mid-45, so expect these times to tumble here a little bit further as this session ramps up. We talked about those tires coming in pretty quickly. It's a high-energy racetrack in terms of getting these Pirelli P0s up to speed, but the cars get a little bit lighter, so if you can manage the tires and keep the balance, there is potential to go quicker. As now we focus here on Robbie Foley. Been in the mix all weekend long in terms of the practice times. Very much in the thick of this championship.
Just behind him is Kyle Marcelli, who was quickest overall in practice 1. Keep an eye on that red Porsche too, but Foley putting in a couple of good sectors.
Yeah, Foley's first sector, about a 10th off Thielitz's purple sector time. Purple meaning fastest overall. Green, if we ever allude to that, as personal best.
Here comes Jan Halen. Personal bests in the first 2 sectors. Jan felt like they were still looking for things when I talked to him just before practice 2, and then they didn't get any laps in at practice 2. Hardly anyone got meaningful laps, as we've chronicled, but let's check the time here for Hagelin. That's a good one. He jumps up to 3rd and provisionally fastest in class, now bumped to 4th overall as Foley comes through to take the top spot away.
Yeah, Foley going out a lap later than some of the other drivers, so he's a little bit out of sync, but electing to let the track rubber in just that fraction more. You're gambling, though. If there's a red flag, suddenly you can run out of time if you hit traffic on those opening laps. So, rolling the dice a little bit. Let's not forget that Robbie Foley, because his teammate Justin Rothberg is a designated bronze, they have to carry 26 kilos extra. Now, talk to Eric Peterson, who engineers this car. He said, I don't really feel it hurts us too much in qualifying. It's more in the race and tire degradation factor where that weight really seems to play its part, because Foley's certainly been sensational this year in some of these qualifying runs, despite the weight penalty.
Foley quickest by a 1/10 of a second. Thielitz had another great lap just a moment ago to jump back to 2nd, and a few moments before that, Mick Grenier had an excellent lap in his JMF Mercedes to go to 3rd. Now bumped down to 4th as Sargent lights up the timesheets. He's into 3rd overall. Top 3 positions held by Pro-Am cars, but keep in mind, just about all of the Pro-Am cars, everyone barring Regulator Racing, has their pro behind the wheel right now.
See the circuit performance there. 29 car of Foley has it through that third sector. It's coming down the roller coaster on the front stretch. Grenier has it through sector 1. And the 32 car of Tom Sargent there. As we said, the Porsche does seem pretty quick here this weekend.
Halen to P1. But very soon, I think he might be challenged by this car. Here comes Robbie Foley, and indeed, Foley goes to the top of the order by 84 thousandths of a second. Halen, though, still quick enough to hold the Pro Class pole as it stands.
I'd say the big surprise right now is seeing where the two random vandals machine. Orbel is down in 10th, third in class, and De Filippi with that off. Not sure if he had to come in and clear out the radiator grill potentially, and he's obviously out of sync, but he's at the bottom of the charts right now. So let's see if his car is healthy and he can use these final 3 minutes to lay down a lap.
Negri, quickest out of the AM class runners, ahead of Eric Powell in his first weekend in GT3 racing, but only by 0.4 of a second.
That's
Powell, I think, had some kind of an issue, though, on that last lap because his third sector, he was shown as stopped for a while, and it took him 1 minute and 18 seconds to get through it, but he seems to be back up and running now.
Yeah, it's a really solid lap. He's only a second and a half off the overall pole, so that's a really great job by Eric Powell here on his first qualifying run with this GT3 car.
Really limited seat time. Did do a test to help secure that ride, but still very much learning the GT3 platform and that Ford Mustang, as is the team, we should note, for Dollarhide Racing. It's only their 4th weekend of racing with that car, but doing a really nice job to be right there in the ballpark with, of course, some assistance from Ford Performance as Negri comes through. Still 11th overall, quickest in class. And here is Eric Powell, back up and running once again, but not with a representative first sector, so this could still be a build lap for one more flyer late in the going.
Yeah, not seeing too many highlights on the timing and scoring in terms of green or purple sectors right now. I think we're still waiting to see if De Filippi has any pace in that 99 car. That's the championship leading car, let's not forget.
Report from Amanda. Sorry, Cal, report from Amanda. This car, the reason it was shown as stopped, I guess it was in the pits because they brought him in and adjusted some tire pressures, and so Powell back out on track now looking for a bit more pace.
Here's that 99 car. Time is running out for Connor De Filippi. Just laid down his personal best sector 1. So he should get to the stripe. He should have this one plus one more. I think that will be about it. So a lap and a half to go before he'll see the checkered flag, but he needs to make it count. We don't want to be buried in the pack when you're the championship leaders. Come from the tail end of the field here.
Come in with a 20-point lead in that championship, but that can go away in a hurry. Things don't quite go your way. He's got another good sector in the middle, personal best. Still a ways off of the ultimate pace we've seen. Look at him throw that car up and over those curbs, bicycling for a moment. There's no holding back here for Connor De Filippi. He knows time is of the essence. Let's see what kind of lap he can put together. 99 car, random vandals, BMW to the timing line. He does improve, but it's still a far cry from what Robbie Foley has done in similar equipment.
Yeah, he's a solid second off here. So the BMW factory pilot, he's a brave young man, so he's just got to wrestle that car a little bit and see if he can jump up the order, because he's got a ton of Pro-Am cars between he and the pro pole sitter of Jan Halen right now is second overall.
Who is going for overall pole, had a great first sector, gave up some time in the middle, but a wonderful third sector is enough to go to the top at a 1:45.004, 33 thousandths of a second clear of Robbie Foley.
Purple sector 1 and sector 3, so that surprised Foley a little bit. I'm not sure he's got time to respond if he wants to grab that overall pole. Foley still on the Pro-Am pole and will share the front row right now with Halen.
That is a big lap from Jan, who, quite frankly, was not terribly sanguine about their chances when I spoke to him earlier in the weekend, but seems they've unlocked something. Different engineer, new engineer on board here this weekend. I feel like that's a relationship. They've had a couple different engineers that they've used just due to availability, basically, and budget. And they feel like they have to start from square one every time that somebody new comes in. But that said, quick study, apparently, because that car is fast.
De Filippi, personal best sector 1, not a great middle sector here. What can he do through the roller coaster? If he can find 2 or 3 tenths, he can jump up a handful of positions. Critical time for our championship leader.
Here he comes through roller coaster down towards Hogpen. Again, up and over those curbs. Again, out to the edge of the track surface. He went wide there earlier in the session, which might have cost him a chance at a high-quality lap. Here comes Connor DeFilippi. What can he put on the board here late in the going? Checkered flag flies, and DeFilippi jumps to 6th.
Yeah, that's pretty good recovery there. 6 overall, 3rd in the pro class, so they'll be satisfied with that. I wouldn't say they're happy. I think they expected a lot more, having seen Kenton's qualifying run in that first session.
Well, that puts him in the fight, at least. Puts him there closer to the front runners in the pro class, but it will be Porsche on pole position. This one right here, what a lap from Jan Halen. Alex Sedgwick kind of showcased what might be possible in his qualifying session just a few moments ago, but Halen tops the charts here. A couple of cars still out on flyers, including Matt Bell, it would appear, as well as Eric Powell, who we just saw come through, but I'm not sure anyone's putting a lap together that would be quick enough to improve. So it looks safe for Halen to take the pole position by 33 thousandths of a second over Robbie Foley's BMW. Then Mick Grenier, the second fastest pro class car, quickest of the Mercedes. He'll line up on the inside of the second row. And Aaron Telitz, a lap he set fairly early in the going, ultimately quick enough for 4th overall, 2nd in class. That positions that Archangel Motorsports team in a good spot to go for their best result of the season, their first podium on what is a birthday weekend for team boss Mike Johnson. Had a birthday just a couple of days ago, so happy birthday, Mike.
Yeah, it's a good group there. Lots of knowledge within that camp. Certainly Todd's done a great job of adjusting to GT3 machinery full-time. Did some races in the off-season, of course, to dip his toe in the water, and he's got a great teammate. They have great chemistry. They're best buddies. And that means a lot. I mean, in terms of tackling these race weekends, if you've got a friendship and you want to hang out for multiple hours, that makes it all the more enjoyable if you're on the same page.
Well, it has become a really strong pairing, and they just get better and better as the year goes along. Solid effort there. Tom Sargent, 3rd fastest out of the Pro-Am cars, 5th overall. DeFilippi, that late flyer to jump up to 6th overall and 3rd in class. And still with a bit of an advantage over the sister cars. That's something to keep an eye on as we go throughout the weekend. These are the provisional pole sitters in the respective classes. Halen and Sedgwick here for race 2, sharing the overall pole sitting car. Then it's Robbie Foley and Justin Rothberg, 2nd overall but quickest in class. And AF Corsa does hang on for the M-Class pole here in the 2nd leg of qualifying, courtesy of Oz Negri. But Eric Powell not far off at all, just 0.4 of a second away from the class pole. This is how they'll line up for the 2nd race tomorrow. And just look at those gaps as well. Top 5 covered by half a second, basically 1 second covering the entire top 10. Shaping up to be a fun couple of races here this weekend, and that's in the dry. There's a very good chance that the races won't all be in the dry either, which could shake things up even further.
Yeah, I think the weather's more likely today than tomorrow. Tomorrow looks relatively clear, but you never can tell with these pop-up thunderstorms. But I'd say the biggest surprise, you talk about the top 10, is seeing Auburn outside of the top 10, because their car had led the pro ranks in practice and practice here this weekend. So there might have been something going on there. Choxy was a little bit quicker, and Auburn's pace had been really strong here up until this qualifying run.
Yeah, something to check on before we get to the start of the race. But that team's on top of it. They'll be chasing it. They'll be ready to go for this afternoon. Jan Halen, what a lap it was. Very nearly broke into the 144s. Just 4 thousandths of a second over at a 145.004. And for RS1, that's a team in fine form across multiple championships right now. Really impressive what they're putting together.
Yeah, and Jan's just, he seems to get better with age, right? He's in his early 40s now, but he just continues to show these young kids that he can get the job done.
So important for a program like this, especially with Alex Sedgwick, who comes into the season without GT3 experience, to have someone who knows the platform, knows the team, can help guide them, especially when they're having a revolving door of engineering up on the box. all of these things make it that much more important to have a veteran presence like Jan Heylen.
Yeah, and I think you get to a racetrack where Jan has run so much, he can make a difference here. This racetrack, if you've got the confidence and you know the nuance where you can eat a little bit more curb, where you can attack the racetrack a little bit more without losing time, as importantly as to where you gain time is not overdriving the racetrack, is really a strong asset to have, and he showcased that in qualifying, obviously.
It's an awesome place. Qualifying, it's right on the edge, and that's what a racing driver like Jan Heylen and all these pros, they love the challenge of it. But then when it comes to racing, this is a track that presents lots of different opportunities. So we can talk more about that as we get into the races, but sounds like our pole sitter is standing by. Let's hear from him now. Amanda Busick in the pits.
Yeah, Ryan, Jan Heylen got out of the Porsche and said, wow, that was good. The guys were just talking about how much on the edge that you have to be here at the track. How true was that?
Yeah, for sure. But I just want to say that this feels, extremely good. We've had such a tough year so far, and I have to give credit to the team for, not giving up and, putting new people in place and people that maybe we didn't have at the beginning of the season. So full credit to them. It's just so much fun when you're out there and you have a car that you can do it with. So, so been waiting for that all season long, and it's fun to be back here.
I imagine the crowd is up for what this Porsche can do here today, and I'm sure the competitors are too, guys.
That was an emotional
Yeah.
Jan Heylen.
Really interesting to see what it meant to him, and it has been a difficult season to some degree. The results have been good, but maybe not great, and I think that's the level that Jan expects, quite frankly.
I think that's the key. I mean, there's so much passion and determination with drivers who are later into their careers. I mean, I think Jan's got multiple years ahead of him at this level still, but it becomes a frustration factor when you don't think you've got all the tools in the toolbox in terms of, with no discredit to the team, in terms of getting that personnel chemistry correct and bringing in new people and having the challenge of integrating on a race weekend is not easy. So to bring someone new in this weekend and work together over the course of 2 or 3 days, and as he said, to have that car underneath you, driving a car in qualifying, we all love racing, right? But to drive a car at its ultimate in qualifying is a great experience.
And saw a glimpse as well of his teammate Alex Sedgwick, who has done a good job acclimating himself to this. This is a big deal for him. This is the opportunity he's been waiting for a long time, and now the team secures its first Rover Pole Award of the season. Maybe it's a little out of practice there, Jan. Not sure where to look. Nope, you're not done yet. More photos.
Looks like he was going through the S's there.
Yeah, a little bit. Well, what are you looking forward to come race time a little bit later on this afternoon?
Well, first and foremost, what's the weather going to give us? So I think guys like Jan Heylen, they'll deal with whatever. Changeable conditions, a rain shower, or starting wet, going dry, whatever the case may be, they're up for it. I think for the AM drivers, they like it one way or the other. They don't like a racetrack that's dry and goes to wet. They're okay on a wet racetrack that dries out and the grip gets increased. But adjusting mid-race, if you suddenly have a rain shower for an AM driver, is certainly very challenging. But I love to see these GT3 cars around this circuit. It's such a sensational circuit. We talk about it being old-schooled, authentic. It challenges you every inch of the way. You've got to be on your toes, and I think particularly challenging is the amount of rain that we've had. So if you do go off track, you're just kind of skating, and that's the problem that the drivers have to look out for.
The situation does compound itself when you get all that wet grass, that's for sure. Well, beautiful conditions right now. Let's hope they hold. Looking ahead to the race this afternoon, so much to look forward to. Great to be back as well after that lengthy break. Of course, a lot of the guys of the GT world were on the CrowdStrike 24 Hours of Spa. Several of these drivers were over there competing in Belgium just a few weeks ago. But now they can focus on the rest of the schedule, and it gets started once again right back here at Virginia International Raceway. And from here on out, it is a pretty regular drumbeat to the end of the season. Back in action for Race 1 of the weekend still to come this afternoon here from VIR. We'll see you then.